1977, a year when soft rock ruled the airwaves, and every radio station seemed to be broadcasting straight from the warmest corner of the decade. These are the songs that dominated but disappeared. 15 forgotten soft rock hits of 1977. Let's begin. 15. Isn't It Time? The Babies were a British rock band who arrived in America with more ambition than recognition. Isn't It Time was their breakthrough moment, a soaring melodic rock track built around John Waite's urgent, pleading vocal and a chorus that seemed to reach for something just out of grasp. Released in 1977, it climbed to number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100, introducing the band to an American audience that would follow them for years. The production was polished without being sterile, warm without being soft, sitting in that precise sweet spot between rock urgency and pop accessibility that defined the best music of the era. It was a song about longing, and it sounded exactly like longing felt. 14. Dancin'. Gray and Hanks were never household names, but in the summer of 1977, they had one of the smoothest records on radio. Dancin' was a slice of West Coast blue-eyed soul so effortlessly constructed that it felt less like a recording and more like a feeling. Built on a lightweight groove and harmonies that seemed to float rather than land, the track reached the top 40 and earned the duo a moment of genuine commercial visibility that their career never quite built upon. There was something almost weightless about it. A song that asked nothing of the listener except to relax and let it wash over them. In 1977, when the airwaves were crowded with competing sounds and competing ambitions, that kind of effortless simplicity was rarer and more valuable than it looked. 13. What You Gonna Do? What you gonna do when she says goodbye? Pablo Cruz were one of the most underappreciated bands of the late 70s, a San Francisco group who blended pop, rock, and soul with a consistency that deserved far more recognition than history has given them. What You Gonna Do was their highest charting single, a bright and breezy track driven by David Jenkins' clean guitar work and a melody so immediately likable that it felt familiar on first listen. It reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the spring of 1977, placing the band squarely in the mainstream for one golden moment. The lyrics carried a gentle urgency, a question about commitment and direction wrapped inside a groove too cheerful to feel threatening. Pablo Cruz would continue recording strong material for years, but What You Gonna Do remains the purest distillation of everything that made them worth remembering. 12. FM. No Static at All. No static at all. Steely Dan were never a band who chased the mainstream. Walter Becker and Donald Fagen built their reputation on sophisticated arrangements, jazz-inflected harmonies, and lyrics that rewarded close attention. FM was the exception, a deliberately accessible track written for the soundtrack of the 1978 film of the same name, but recorded in 1977 and immediately embraced by the very radio stations it celebrated. With its shimmering guitar intro and effortlessly cool vocal, it captured the particular magic of late-night radio in a way that felt both affectionate and slightly satirical. It reached number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100, modest by pop standards, but enormous for a band who rarely courted that kind of attention. FM remains one of the most purely enjoyable things Steely Dan ever recorded. Proof that accessibility and intelligence were never mutually exclusive. If these songs are bringing back memories you forgot you had, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so we can keep uncovering the hidden gems of rock history. Let's keep going. 11. Slide. Slave were a funk collective from Dayton, Ohio who arrived in 1977. With a sound so tight and so deeply grooved that it seemed almost mechanical in its precision. Slide was their debut single and their defining moment, a piece of lean, hypnotic funk built on a bass line that seemed to move independently of everything around it. It reached number 32 on the pop charts, but performed significantly stronger on the rhythm and blues chart, where it became a genuine underground sensation. Steve Washington's production was ahead of its time, stripping away excess and letting the groove do the work in a way that pointed directly toward the sound of the following decade. 10. Don't Give Up on Us.
Don't give up on us, baby.
David Soul was better known as a television actor than a recording artist, but in 1977, Don't Give Up on Us made that distinction irrelevant. The song had already reached number 1 in the United Kingdom the previous year, and its American chart run through early 1977 carried it to the top of the Billboard Hot 100, where it sat for a week. It was a straightforward ballad, built on a simple piano melody and Soul's warm, unhurried vocal, and it worked precisely because it asked nothing complicated of the listener. The production was modest, and the sentiment was direct, two qualities that radio programmers and casual listeners alike found irresistible. Soul never repeated the commercial success of this single, and his music career faded as his acting work continued. But for one brief moment, he owned the airwaves completely. 9. Night Moves.
And on a night moves, trying to make some front page.
Bob Seger had been recording since the mid-1960s, without ever quite breaking through to the audience his talent deserved. Night Moves changed everything. Released in late 1976 and climbing through the early months of 1977, it was a long, unhurried meditation on adolescence and desire, built around a piano figure and Seger's weathered, deeply honest vocal. The song reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and introduced millions of listeners to an artist who had been hiding in plain sight for over a decade. What made Night Moves extraordinary was its emotional precision. Seger was not romanticizing youth from a distance. He was remembering it with the kind of specific, aching detail that only comes from lived experience. It was a song about the past that felt urgently present, and it launched one of the most durable careers in American rock. 8. Year of the Cat.
Should I tell you that she came and the year of the cat?
Al Stewart was a Scottish singer-songwriter with a gift for writing pop songs that felt like short films. Year of the Cat was his masterpiece, a lush, cinematic track built around a saxophone melody so distinctive that it seemed to carry its own weather system. Released in 1976 and climbing to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1977, the song told an elliptical story of mystery and romantic intrigue set against an exotic backdrop that nobody could quite locate on a map. The production by Alan Parsons was sumptuous and detailed, layering orchestral textures over a rock foundation without ever losing the song's essential intimacy. Stewart's vocal was calm and slightly detached, which somehow made the whole thing more involving rather than less. Year of the Cat remains one of the most atmospheric records of its era, a song that creates a world and invites you to disappear inside it. 7. I've Got Love on My Mind.
I've got love on my mind.
Natalie Cole arrived in the mid-70s as one of the most gifted vocalists of her generation, carrying both the weight of her father's legendary name and the pressure of forging something entirely her own. I've Got Love on My Mind was the song that balanced both demands most gracefully. A smooth and swaying rhythm and blues track that showcased her voice with a warmth and confidence that silenced any lingering comparisons. It reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the spring of 1977 and spent 3 weeks at number 1 on the Rhythm and Blues chart. The production was polished and unhurried, giving Cole space to move through the melody with the kind of ease that only the truly gifted make look simple. It was a joyful record, uncomplicated in the best possible way, and it announced that Natalie Cole was nobody's supporting act. 6. How Deep Is Your Love?
Need to show how deep is your love? Is your love how deep?
By 1977, the Bee Gees had already completed one of the most remarkable career reinventions in pop history. How Deep Is Your Love arrived as a preview of the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack and immediately demonstrated that what was coming would be something extraordinary. Released in September of 1977, it climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 3 weeks, becoming one of the smoothest and most emotionally resonant records the brothers Gibb ever produced. The harmonies were immaculate, the arrangement was tender and spacious, and Barry Gibb's lead vocal carried a vulnerability that the group's disco material sometimes obscured. It was a ballad in an era of dance floor anthems, and its restraint was precisely its strength. How Deep Is Your Love proved that beneath all the sequins and mirror balls, the Bee Gees were simply extraordinary songwriters who could make you feel things without ever raising their voices. 5. You Light Up My Life. Debbie Boone was 22 years old when You Light Up My Life spent 10 consecutive weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making it one of the longest-running chart toppers in the history of the chart at that point. Written by Joe Brooks for the film of the same name, the song was a gentle, devotional ballad that connected with audiences on a scale that nobody, including Boone herself, had anticipated. Her vocal was clear and unaffected, carrying the melody with a sincerity that felt completely genuine rather than manufactured. The production was simple and uncluttered, which gave the song a timeless quality that more elaborate records of the era often lacked. Boone won a Grammy for Best New Artist, and then watched her commercial momentum slow almost immediately afterward. 4. I Just Want to Be Your Everything.
I just wanna be your everything.
Andy Gibb was 19 years old when I Just Want to Be Your Everything reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the summer of 1977. The youngest of the Gibb brothers, he arrived with the family's gift for melody already fully formed, and this debut single announced him as a commercial force entirely independent of his older brother's enormous shadow. Written by Barry Gibb and produced with the same glossy warmth that defined the best Gibb family recordings of the era, the song was a straightforward declaration of romantic devotion, delivered with a sweetness and earnestness that felt completely unguarded. It spent 4 weeks at number 1 and launched a run of consecutive chart toppers that no solo artist had achieved since the Beatles. Andy Gibb's story ended in tragedy. His life cut short at just 30 years old, which lends this bright and uncomplicated record a particular tenderness in retrospect. Sometimes the simplest songs carry the heaviest weight. 3. Best of My Love. The Emotions were 3 sisters from Chicago, whose voices together created something that no individual talent could have produced alone. Best of My Love was their commercial breakthrough, a euphoric piece of rhythm and blues, produced by Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire, that arrived in the summer of 1977 and immediately took over every radio station in America. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed there for 5 weeks, becoming one of the defining sounds of the year. The production was bright and intricate, layering the sisters' voices over a groove that felt simultaneously effortless and immaculately constructed. Sheila Hutchinson's lead vocal soared above everything, carrying a joy so genuine and so uncontainable that it seemed to burst the boundaries of the recording itself. 2. Don't Leave Me This Way.
Don't leave me this way, no. I can't accept.
Thelma Houston had been recording for years without the commercial recognition her voice deserved when Don't Leave Me This Way arrived and changed everything. Originally recorded by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes featuring Teddy Pendergrass, Houston's version transformed the song entirely, lifting it from soulful desperation into something closer to triumphant defiance. Released in late 1976 and climbing to number 1 in early 1977, it became one of the most urgent and physically irresistible records of the disco era. The production pulsed and surged, building relentlessly beneath Houston's vocal, which moved between vulnerability and power with a control that left listeners breathless. It won Houston a Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Vocal Performance, and remains the definitive version of a song that several artists have attempted and none have bettered. Don't Leave Me This Way was the sound of a voice finally getting the stage it had always deserved. 1. Dreams. Fleetwood Mac recorded Rumors in a state of almost complete emotional collapse. The band's two couples were simultaneously dissolving, and the personal devastation that surrounded every session seeped into every track they laid down. Dreams was Stevie Nicks' contribution to that wreckage, written in a single sitting on a keyboard, set up in a studio rehearsal space, while the rest of the band worked nearby. It was a response to Lindsey Buckingham's Go Your Own Way, quieter and more measured than his version of the same breakdown, but no less devastating for its restraint. Released in the spring of 1977, it became Fleetwood Mac's only #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100, sitting at the top for 1 week before beginning a chart run that reflected the album's extraordinary commercial dominance. 1977 gave us music that was warm, unhurried, and quietly extraordinary. These were the songs that filled the spaces between everything else and somehow became everything. If this brought something back, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.